I'm David Bryant. I do geometric landscapes based out of the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia.
Right over there. Great. And you have been doing this particular style of painting about 6 years, you said?
Since 2018, so about 4 or 5 years.
Okay. And what was the motivation for you to get into this painting work style or whatever it might, however you might call it?
So I've always, and maybe I didn't know it, it's just something I dabbled in, but I've always loved geometric shapes and line work. I really noticed it when I lived on the road. I would notice it on tractor trailers, and I loved the way it seemed like a traveling panoramic canvas. And I love the way lines flow. I love the language of shapes. And so I never realized I maybe understood that language, and I tried to apply it to different mediums: photography, filmmaking, graphic design. None of those really worked for me, and I realized this was a more hands-on kinetic process, which I found out since I've been here, involves Gestalten principles of design and Gestalten therapy principles. And I didn't realize that I was kind of already mixing those together. I did that. I started this about 5 years ago when my dad passed away. And it was kind of like that feeling, I think, in the midst of grief. But basically it helped me kind of center in as a way of doing that to kind of help myself grieve, help myself heal. And then I realized I was really connected to it. So for the last few years, I've been using shapes to try to construct landscapes, and this was the first painting where I actually knew the landscape before I would construct something around it. So that's really where I've started to shift all of my focus, is to represent the mountain ranges of Blue Ridge around the Roanoke Valley of Virginia in this style. And you thankfully helped me gain a lot of knowledge on the principles of design, so I can be guided.
And just kind of expand your work style. So this was kind of a visceral thing for you to start, and you described it as kind of almost like a meditative process.
Very much so. So I get calm with kinetic movement, and so that's why photography, filmmaking, even graphic design, I couldn't engage with it long enough to get into that mindset. And so when I came here, I really realized how much the Gestalten therapy principles were playing out in my work. I was kind of centering on that, and I didn't know it. Once it clicked, it all came out. So I had to release a lot in the studio, which happened here, emotionally. And then it really started just giving way to, okay, focus on the design work, focus on the painting itself, and I felt cleansed, I felt cleaned. And then I was able just to focus on the work, which I have been craving for the last 5 years. Not for it to be attached to something, but for it to, as Heidegger says, be for itself, by itself.
So that's good. So is that the impetus to figure out and find a residency program, since this is your first one, right?
Yes. So for me to specifically seek out a residency by myself. So I didn't want any support system. I didn't want anything around. For the last few years, I've been a support system for my family, but at the same time, it's been a support system for me. And it's never really allowed me to dive into what I've developed since it started a few years ago. So for me to have unrestricted time, just to focus on what that is, unleashed all kinds of things of my personality that I didn't even realize because I was spreading it outward. So
you brought one canvas and the goal of doing one piece.
Yes.
Because of the amount of time that it normally takes you to do. So
usually it takes me about 3 months. And I pride myself on being an efficient person. And I knew if I gave myself time to be efficient, it would become efficient. And it did. So for something to come to fruition in 2 weeks rather than 3 months was a
really
significant time crunch.
Yeah.
But it proved to myself that I have the endurance to do that in a short amount of time.
Yeah. So if you were doing this in your normal life for 3 months, how many hours a week do you think you would spend on a painting?
Well, when I came here, all I was working on is that painting process. And for me, there's 3 processes. There's the conceptual process, which all of it's kinetic. None of it involves internet. It all has to be hands-on work. So I try to figure out the line patterns, the color theory, and what shapes to incorporate, and what mountain I'm doing. That usually takes a month or 2 months to gather because I'm actually engaging with the mountain that I'm going to be painting, getting that reference material, and then it takes a while to geometrically figure out how it's going to play out. Then there's the actual meditative processes, which is applying the paint and the line work on the canvas, which is hours and hours of methodical taping and painting, which allows me just to, the metaphor I use is like sit on the beach and objectively watch the tide come in and out. And that's where I'm at. And then the last process is to allow it to steep in time, which is, let it settle on the eye and see where it needs to tighten up to be more in line with those Gestalten principles of design.
Nice, nice. So you actually have to leave a little bit early because there's a storm front coming in, and you were able to finish the piece a little bit sooner than you probably thought, or you told me that you had given yourself kind of some time because you really wanted to finish a few days before you left.
I did. I really, honestly, when I came here, my expectations were it wasn't going to be finished.
Okay.
But once again, I told you, I can make things pretty efficient. So I put a lot of studio time in.
Okay.
And I've gotten to a point where it's ready to settle.
Yeah.
But it's not finished.
Okay.
So over the next month, it will ease on my eyes. I will align more things, correct more things to balance it out. And then it should be done by then.
Yeah. What do you think you got the most out of the residency?
The most I got out of the residency was being able to... I came here knowing some experimenting with principles of design. What I came here was more of a concrete foundation of what those rules are and how to follow them, which allows me to have a lot more control over the planning process and the implementation process. And I'm very happy to go back, and now that I have a subject of the mountains that I want to represent, that I can now be more efficient and also have more options just following those principles of design.
Okay, great. Asked you, but so
you asked me what I learned about.
Yeah, learned about.
Being here.
Yeah. Did you have any surprises? The library, maybe.
The library, yes. The library. The library was one of my favorite things.
Okay.
So the fact that there's so many design books and so many cameras around just kind of aligned to that transition that I was seeking when I got here. Didn't know it, but it was literally here the whole time. I have a library bigger than anything I could find on Amazon or anywhere else. So yes.
Yeah.
And then I spent days. So there were days where I worked for maybe an hour on the painting, but then the other 7 to 8 hours was spent just studying these books and learning that theory.
That's great.
And so now I've ordered a lot of those books, a lot of that theories at my house now.
Yay!
For me to get there and to study it further.
Yeah, that's great. So what were some other of the just kind of positive takeaways? I know that we were talking casually, not on video. You were just talking about the space and how the space just kind of fits you, and the color scheme that I have is like similar.
A lot of the colors were very aesthetically pleasing, and Reagan aligned with what I love. So there's great complementary colors, but also they're bold enough to stand out.
Yeah.
But the studio space having all natural lighting. And then the room being right next to the studio space, which is a very comfortable room, allowed me to go in and out seamlessly throughout the whole residency. And I think that's what aided in some of my efficiency.
Yeah, that's great. And I'm so happy that it just worked out the right way, because of the type of work that you're doing. You can't really be outside, and
it was so
dusty and stuff. So it ended up being like the right workspace.
You actually helped me understand that how clean I actually try to keep my work.
Yeah.
And the space worked out perfect. The other thing I kind of learned was that I told you was humidity control, something I want to use in my studio. So, with a day room with a lot of natural light, you have temperature fluctuations.
Yeah.
And so I would learn how to fluctuate cold and warm temperatures to apply the right drying time for the paint on the canvas.
So you're really becoming kind of like intimately it's almost like a scientific process too, because you have to like figure out the different all of that kind of chemistry, right, with the acrylic paint. And do the different color values have different thicknesses and drying times and things like that?
And actually, that's why this works so well for me. If my mind likes to do that anyway, and maybe it's always, I think I have a creative side of me, but like a lot of my family, which is very kind of logical and methodical in their way of thinking, I never really knew how to mix those two. And now this is a really safe space for me to let logic and theory and rules of design be thought out all the time.
Yeah.
So that I'm not using that in my personal life and hyper-analyzing something there. This is a place where I can do it as much as I want.
Yeah.
It can drive me crazy, but it leaves me in a better place after I'm done. A lot of closure where I'm not playing those same type of methodical thinking. I'm not doing that to socially.
Yeah. Yeah. So, the biggest takeaway for you, what was your favorite part of being here besides the work? And what's next for you?
So my favorite part of being here was having the wealth of knowledge that you provide.
Oh, that's sweet. I thought you were going to say Smokey.
No, Smokey's my friend, but Smokey also got very spoiled when Smokey walks up to the porch. That is one of my favorite parts, is having the donkeys come and meet me every morning for coffee and carrots, or in the evening for apples. But as nice as they are, they get used to what they have, and then they came up there kind of honking for giving to them whether I had it or not.
Exactly.
But your wealth of knowledge and mixed with the environment that I wanted to be in, I had mentioned it before, but there is large diversity of nature out here, from the river to the bluffs to the fields. To the little forest out there, you can go anywhere and be in a different landscape within a relatively contained property range. Yeah. And so I needed that. I had to have that. My work is based in nature. So if I don't have nature and I don't have nature to work with, then it really doesn't make much. It's the wrong environment for me to work. So it worked out well for me.
Some people might say, oh, you're doing geometric nature. Like, what are you talking about? It's not Bob Ross with Happy Little Trees, right?
I desire order.
Yeah.
And interplay. So my series is called Interplay because I believe that sometimes I feel like that people want to ascend. So they're escaping what they don't want in their life to become what they do want in their life. And for me, both have to play out and hold hands. So, pain and happiness, one isn't understood without the other. So the lines represent that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Yeah.
So the Gestalt theory helps. The other thing that I want to mention too is the Destijl, Destijl. It's a style that is very, it's kind of like come out of the avant-garde and like modernism movement, and it's the reduction of form and color. So Mondrian is the most famous, but if you look at some of the process work that the Destijl artists, and they even did architecture and that kind of thing. It's really interesting to look at the way that they started with landscape paintings and then abstracted into this kind of geometric form. It's not similar to what you're doing, but that's just another thing that popped into my head to look into. And I could probably pull out a book just to show you, and then you can, run with it when you have time to look up that history. But
if people could see what that is recording right now.
Yeah.
That's what this provides. Your wealth of knowledge knows how to put the artist in the right place to start finding for themselves what they need in their work. And I did not know what I needed until I started discovering that with you.
Yeah.
What you're talking about, I have no idea. Will I go down that rabbit hole in the next 15
I'll
minutes?
show you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll show you when we stop. I'll show you. I'll add it to the video. But yeah, well, when I know that we've had this conversation, but you were like, I don't know, my work, getting accepted, and I explained that when I saw your work, it reminded me of my own 2D class and the painting. And I think that some of the connection to figuring some of the stuff out happened on our forest walk. And I was talking to you about your work and then my class that I took a long time ago. And the painting is in your room.
Yes.
And it is based on the golden mean, the golden triangle, the golden spiral, which is all based in nature. And the next day I saw you, you were kind of glowing with all of the excitement.
What did you explain to me? You explained that there is a logical balance, which is the gold ratio, and it exists in nature, the natural. And that's what I seek, is what we've developed in our own minds for us to control and to analyze and to understand in many different languages, and what has already been there and we've learned from. So even in the paintings, I've tried to understand even just basic shape theory. Circles, triangles, lines. What are their meaning? What do we think when we see them? We're not even thinking about that anymore. It's just that known, but it's used in all of our logos, all of our design work. And when someone wants you to feel a certain way about their business, it's designed so you feel a certain way, and you do inherently understand what those circles, triangles, lines mean. So there is a literal language that humans have applied to natural things.
Yeah, exactly. And you also were explaining, like, your color concept is that you look at it and then you close your eyes and then you see the opposite. So you're like
That's my photography background.
Okay.
So I've understood there, just as there's good and bad, there's also positive and negative. And in photography, that is literal. So yes, I work with a concept of image generators, which takes the color palette, and once it ingrains into your mind a little bit and you close your eyes, it should invert to its complementary colors. So in my mind, there's another positive, negative balance that's playing out other than just what you're literally seeing and calling your reality at that moment.
That's awesome. Well, what's next for you?
So
after your drive.
After this drive.
Yeah.
So what I'm happy about was this is the first painting that was based off of a actual subject, which is the Peaks of Augers in Bedford County, Virginia.
Okay.
All the paintings before then were shapes and lines constructed into landscapes without a subject.
Okay.
So this was supposed to kickstart many mountain ranges that I will be representing within the Roanoke Valley and the Appalachia region moving forward. I plan on focusing on this over the next year until my next residency.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
Which will probably be in Kentucky.
That is incredible. Well, I think that that's a fantastic story. So I'm just so grateful to have met you and had the conversation and had you here. And we had some other good times like the full moon and the spring equinox, and all these things are really special. And, we can't replace like the here and now, so.
I was here for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I think I would have gained from a lot more.
Yeah.
But I think having that time constraint allowed me to really give in to everything this place had to offer.
Yeah. Well, thanks for all your help too. And I can't wait to see what's next. And I hope I see you again.
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks for watching my interview and conversation with David. I did mention that he might be interested in looking into Distill as an art movement that about geometry and his work. So I would recommend starting first with the Tate Museum that has some good information about Mondrian and Theo van Doesburg, as well as other modern art movements. If you're interested in learning more about graphic design or graphic design history, please message me, and I actually coach and teach design and design history. If you're interested in a residency, please apply today. Thank you all.